Hashem Naaseh v'Natzliach, Shiur Torah, Shavua Tov, Shavua Mevorach. We're continuing our series, The Jewish HaShkafa. Baruch Hashem, there's been a lot of interference in this series, but we keep pushing on. Tonight's shiur will be for a refuah shlema for Avi Mori David Ben Esriya, Doris Bat Jora, Rabbanit Levana Bat Sarah, Rav Ephraim Ben Shulamit, Rabbanit Sarah Bat Anat, Orit Bat Ilana. And also for Atzlacha Rabba for Shaul Ben Farzane, Amir Ben Shaheen, Marsha Bat Julie, Ayla Bat Marsha, Samuel Ben Marsha, Cephas Ben Marsha, Alexander Ben Marsha, Louis Ben Marsha, Yitro Ben Avraham, and all of Am Yisrael will have Atzlacha Rabba, and all of the righteous Noahites will have Atzlacha Rabba. Gambi spirituality and all Gamba Nefesh v'Gamba Guf. Okay, so we have a Baruch Hashem. This week is another week in the Shuvavim. For all of you that have ordered the Shuvavim package in the KIRUV store, which is free. Chazakim Buchim that you did it. If you haven't, there's still some left. Baruch Hashem. It comes, like I said, in the with these USBs. A lot of people love these USBs. They have over 100 lectures in them in regards to tikkun brit, wasting seed, immorality, promiscuity, immodesty, and so on. And also has movies in there as well. So these USBs come in the Tikkun Shovavim package. You also have the cards, you have the little booklets, Holy Nation. All of that you can get for free, a set of 10, or if you want more, you can get more. On the website KIRUVstore.org. KIRUV Store, KIRUV store.org. So with that being said, let's just get started. There's a lot of Torah Baruch Hashem that we have to get through, and a couple of extraordinary stories that Be'ezrat Hashem will have the Siyata D'Ishmaya to say. So we just got through Parashat Truma, and Baruch Hashem, Parashat Truma is full of extraordinary insights. Some of them we went over last week. B'ezrat Hashem, we had another insight about it over the weekend. Perhaps we'll have the Siyata D'Ishmaya to say it as well. So now you have the Chazon Ish in chapter 3, section number 30. Some say that there was actually a couple of chapters or a couple of sections within chapter 3 that were not printed in all of the popular versions of this Sefer, and the author of this particular version, which has a both English and Hebrew translation, says that when it went to print, he included these couple of parts that were found that were in between. So since we are still checking, I guess, into those other ones, they're not broken up the same way. We'll add those parts, Be'ezrat Hashem, at the end of the series. And we'll just move forward into the next section because we really don't see the connection. I looked into them. I don't see the connection between what we've already read and what was written in them. But Be'ezrat Hashem, after we study them further, we'll see what's what. So, over the last several months, the Chazon Ish has told us that there's a lot of things that a person needs to work on, whether it's as Emunat, as bitachon, whether it's understanding what Emunat is and understanding what bitachon is, which quite frankly I think in this generation is the least a person could expect to know is to know what Emunah and Bitachon is before they start preaching that they have Emunah and Bitachon. And quite frankly, most people do not really know what Emunat and Bitachon is, and and when we read the first several sections, and really the entire first chapter of this sefer, we saw the Chazon Ish's explanation of what Emunat and Bitachon is quite more elaborate than what we've seen elsewhere. Unless you're looking into the Rishonim, like the Chovat Levavot and and all of the other places that are from 800 years ago. But aside from that, the Chazon Ish has told us that just focusing on Emunah and Bitachon is not possible. A person needs to learn Musar, learn Halacha, learn how to apply those things to their life. But there is another anecdote that a person has to be careful of, and that's things that will destroy all of that. Meaning, a person can build as much as he wants. Okay, you can build every day. You have another shiur under your belt. Every day you have another daf. Every day you have another parasha, and you keep building. And you see, person goes to yeshiva, goes sometimes even to kollel for a few years, and building. But then all of a sudden you see this person doing something that's completely unlike what a ben Torah would do, unlike what a bat Torah would do, unlike what a frum Jew would do, whether it be, going to a place that no Jew belongs in, a mevin yavin, or it's inviting people to your home or your synagogue that you shouldn't even be associated with, and a mevin yavin, or it's saying certain things that one should never say, whether it be about your own rabbi, or chas v'shalom on some of the Gdolei Ador, or even about another Jew. When a person does not know where to turn and what to turn, a person could get very, very lost. And one of the things that we've seen throughout this last couple of years with this epidemic that has taken over the Yetzer Hara's job over the last couple of years is the fact that the epidemic has caused more people to lose their olam haba than people lose their lives in this world. And many of those people that have lost their olam haba and will Be'ezrat Hashem succeed in earning it back somehow are still alive and well. But they don't realize that they're like the walking dead because of all of the garbage that came out of their mouth about Gdolei Ador, about what Da'at Torah is, about the Torah in general, about Hashem, and a lot of nonsense has come out of people's mouths and off of their fingertips because everyone became a keyboard warrior in the last couple of years. Everyone's a journalist, everyone is a physicist, everyone is a medical expert, a biologist, and a chemist, all put together, even sometimes without a high school diploma somehow. But nonetheless, many people have decided that they are medical experts, and any rabbi that disagrees with them is a fool, is old, is biased, is this and that. And unfortunately, in the process of spewing their venom, they didn't realize that they were only biting themselves, and have lost their olam haba in the process. They still look more or less frum. They still cover their head. They still may go to shuls. They still may pray a few times a day, and they still may even give some tzedakah. But they do not know that they are simply the walking dead. They have lost their share of the world to come, and they're considered, according to halacha, apikosim, because of the things that they said. And this is, in essence, the next section of what the Chazon Ish is discussing, because the coronavirus and all the vaccine opinions is not the only thing that happened in the last couple of years. We also see the Yetzer Hara has used different people and their actions or accusations have also led many people to say certain things that would cost them their olam haba. And that's actually one of the things that the Chazon Ish is now warning us about. It's not enough about learning about Emunat. It's not enough about knowing what bitachon is. It's not even enough about for a person to learn musar and even become an expert in halacha. The person also must be very, very careful of the poison that he allows to enter his mind. And one of the most extraordinary, as far as its potency, poisons, the spiritual poisons that could enter a person, is the poison where they would get the doubts that Amalek likes to add into the people, the doubts against Da'at Torah, the doubts against Chachamim. And that's section 30 of chapter 3 talks about this. It says, there's yet another disease of the spirit that the evil inclination uses to keep the belief in sages, Emunat Chachamim, to keep the belief in sages from entering people's heart. And that is the fickle scale of personal interest. Meaning that Chazon Ish here is saying that one of the most critical parts of serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu is to know where to turn when you actually don't know what you're doing, which is more or less all the time. This is why a person has to have a Rav. I was speaking to a group of people that were frum, I would say probably their whole life, not too long ago. And, speaking, and through the conversation found out that not a single one of them, and we're talking about a very decent-sized group, probably, I would say, close to 100 of them, close to 100 people, that not a single one of them that's frum their whole life and even learned in yeshiva. Okay, some of them perhaps even learned after yeshiva. Not a single one of them knew how to paskin halacha, and how do we even arrive at halacha, and whether you could just choose to follow whoever and whatever you want, or there is an opinion for Klal Yisrael that we have to follow. Meaning that the general consensus was simply, I'll do whatever I figure, whatever sounds good. If I hear it in shul, if the rabbi mentions it in the, in the weekly shiur that he gives, then that's what I'll do. But if he doesn't, I'll just figure it out on my own. If somebody asks me a question, I'll look it up online. Oh, are you allowed to eat pig? Let's see. Google, tell me. No. Okay, all right, guys, not allowed to eat pig. What if it's bacon? Okay, Google, is bacon any different than pig? No. Okay, no, guys, you're not to eat. All right.
Difference between .net. They say pork refers to the entire.
Look at that.
While bacon is specifically made from the sides and back of the pig. To find out more, look.
Google over here is giving us the answer. So Google contributed to the shiur just now. Google may have some merits. So you see here, Rabotai, that sometimes a person will literally go to a Google instead of going to a rabbi because they don't know where to do, what to do, how to do. They honestly don't know. And one of the most important things for a person to do as a Jew is to know what to do when push comes to shove. And that's one of the reasons why a person has to have a relationship, an ongoing relationship with a rabbi that's going to teach them how to arrive at the truth. Now, unfortunately, one of the things that the Yetzer Hara works on is to convince people that no one possesses the truth, you're just as good as anybody else, and even if it's the biggest rabbi in the world, he's just human after all. And he can make mistakes, so just because he says so doesn't mean it's right. So thereby taking what is called Emunat Chachamim, faith in our sages, which is literally one of the fundamentals of a Jewish life, and throwing it into the garbage. Why? Because the belief that Chacham, no matter how great he is, whether he be the biggest rabbi in town, or the biggest rabbi in the world, or the biggest rabbi in a generation, he's still human according to certain people, and therefore he has negia. Negia is a halachic term where he is biased. He's biased, personal bias, or a certain, custom bias, this bias, that bias, all types of negia that is, in essence, steering their decision the wrong way. How many times have we all heard over the last year or 2 years that Rabbi such and such has negia, and therefore he can't judge this one correctly. Or Rabbi such and such, maybe he's not negua, but really, he didn't really get the question. His son got the question, and his son has negia, and maybe his son is the one that's doing it. So Rabotai, I'm here to tell you, you're going to hear a couple of things today. It's going to show you a couple of things. One of the most important things that Be'ezrat Hashem I'm hoping to succeed in delivering is the fact that having doubts in Chachamim is not a joke. It's not a joke. It's not a joking matter. There's nothing funny about it. It's literally pikuach nefesh. And we're going to see a few things from the Chazon Ish that will lead us to that understanding. So now the Yetzer Hara is working hard. The Chazon Ish says, Yetzer Hara is working hard to keep the belief in the sages, to keep the Emunat and the Chachamim from entering people's heart because of Negia. But reality is that the disciple of a rabbi, whether you're a disciple of the rabbi that already passed or you're a disciple of the rabbi that you're learning from on a regular basis, the disciple of a rabbi is obligated to believe that there is no personal interest powerful enough to incline the heart of a Talmid Chacham to pervert justice. For the goal of the Torah scholar is to bring merit to his own soul, and to stain his soul with sin would hurt him far more than anything physical. A person is not necessarily understanding what is a Chacham when they think that they can actually be biased. If you think that your rabbi is biased, then he shouldn't be your rabbi. If you think that a certain rabbi, a Gdol Hador, is biased, then perhaps you should learn more about that Gdol Hador before you spew out that opinion to anybody aside from your own mind. Because for them to be decreed by Shamayim to be one of the Gdolei Hador was not an accident. And I promise you it's not because they read a lot of books. And I promise you it's not because they're old. There's a lot more that happens before a person is decreed in Shamayim to become one of the Gdolei Hador. There are some people that know an enormous amount of Torah, but lived in the world and left the world unknown. And others, quite the opposite. In fact, some of the Chachamim that have discussed the things, the matters that happen after this life, say that the judges at the Beit Din of heaven of each generation are the Chachamim of that generation. Meaning, the Gdolei Hador that you see today in the pictures, or if you went to visit them, this is not the last time you're going to see them. In fact, you're going to see them in Shamayim. They're going to be one of the Dayanim that tells you guilty or innocent. They're going to be one of the Dayanim in Shamayim that says guilty or innocent. What did you think? Moshe Rabbeinu is going to be your Dayan? What merit do you think you have to even see the face of Moshe Rabbeinu without being destroyed for eternity? What do you think? Yaakov Avinu is going to be your judge, or the Chafetz Chaim maybe? What delusion do people live in? The Dayanim that you're going to have in Shamayim are going to be the Gdolei Hador of that generation. Of that generation. Meaning, for HaKadosh Baruch Hu to pick a Gdol Hador, it's not because he just read books, even though reading books is extraordinary. There has to be something else. There has to be a Mesiut Nefesh, a self-sacrifice, something extraordinary that was done by that person for HaKadosh Baruch Hu to say, you are part of my Beit Din. Not just in this world, in the world in Shamayim. You paskin, I fulfill, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says. We're partners. It's a very big deal, Rabotai. So for people to say, Rabbi such and such, I don't even want to say the names of and the stupidity that came out of people's mouths over the last couple of years. When they say Rabbi such and such doesn't know what he's doing, he's old, his son, his daughter, his this, his that. They have no idea what they're doing to themselves. They have no idea what they're doing to themselves. It's literally like going, smashing the judge's car in front of his eyes, putting a note on it with your picture on it, telling him I did it just in case you forgot, then beating up his kids, robbing his entire bank account, and say, Okay, I'll see you in court. And who's the judge? He's the judge on you. It's the dumbest thing in the world when people speak against Gdolei Ador. This is why one of our dear friends and partners made a whole film about this Rasha Merusha, Nathan Slifkin, Shem Rashaim Yerkav, that it made an entire career of mocking the Gdolei Ador, mocking them in every way, shape, or form that he can, mocking the world of the Charedim. And of course, for those that are already on his wicked side, they're not going to see anything wrong with it. They're going to see that he's the victim. And for those that have eyes to see, they're obviously going to see the truth. But the point being, as Rabotai, is that when a person is not looking to see the truth, they'll see whatever they want. Because the Yetzer Hara is working very, very hard to make sure that you don't see the truth. To make sure that you see the Gdolei Ador, the sages of the generation, as average men and women. Average people. Average, just like you. Now, Rabotai, the Chazon Ish says one of the obligations that a person has to know for himself is that if you consider yourself a disciple, a talmid, a follower of one of these Gdolim, Rav Ovadia, the Rav Eliashiv, the Chafetz Chaim, whoever, or it's one of your rabbis that really helped you out in this world and teaches you on a regular basis, you have to already test yourself by saying, am I really a disciple, or am I really just, I like the way he writes books, I like the way he says things in a video, I like that people like him, I like that he's popular. Or am I really the disciple? How do you know if you're the disciple? Now, one test is if that Chacham ever rebuked you. If that Chacham ever rebuked you and if you stayed with him, that's already a big test showing that you're in the right direction. But that's not necessarily always the case. You have to have merit to be rebuked by a Chacham. Not everybody has that merit, and not everybody has the opportunity. But more or less, a person needs to know this answer of whether they're really a disciple or not on their own. How? Do you believe that this Chacham that you claim to follow has any bias? I remember seeing one of the lectures by Chacham Rav Ovadia, and when he spoke against wigs, and I'll never forget it, when he was talking about how he toiled and collected a list of over 116 or 126 poskim throughout all of the years that have concluded without a shadow of a doubt that wigs are forbidden. Not because of idolatry, but just simply because of immodesty. Both from the Ashkenazi, Sephardi, Hasidish, all across the board, Tanaim, Amoraim. And he says, people think I speak against it for what? What, I have a hat store or something? And that simple statement made such an impression on me that I've mentioned it several times in Shiurim without really thinking twice about how beautiful that simple statement is. How it fit within my simple neshama, that really, why are you saying all this? What is it? Because you make money out of it? You're looking to become more popular because of it? You're looking, what? What do people think when one of the Chachamim Paskins and Halakha tells you this is what it says? This is what it says. This is allowed, this is forbidden. What do people think? He's just saying it. What? To be a shock jock? To, what is he on Hollywood? Chas v'shalom. Why is he saying it? He's obviously saying it because that's the truth. But unfortunately, people don't want to hear. So Rav Ovadia is literally crying out to his own audience. He's saying, what do these people think? I have a hat store that every time somebody takes off the wig and they go buy a hat, I make money out of it? What do they think? Now, a person that thinks that their rabbi has any type of bias, whether it be monetary bias or it be any other type of bias, that means you're not their disciple. That means you're not their Talmud. That means you are a stranger to them. You may like their lectures. You may even own their books. You may have even read all of their books. But you are not a disciple of that rabbi. Why? For you to think that they have a bias means you do not appreciate them as a real Chacham. Because a real Chacham, says the Chazon Ish, bias is not a language that speaks to them. Bias is not a language that speaks to them because there is no such thing as personal interest that can incline the heart of a Chacham in order to pervert their justice. Because their entire lives, all they're trying to do is to bring merit to their own soul, and therefore to stain their soul with a sin such as bias, such as making the wrong decision intentionally, will hurt that Chacham far more than any physical blow that you can give them. Meaning, if you think that just because somebody gave them a donation or a payoff or whatever, that's the reason why they're saying what they're saying. Or if you think because they're looking to be more popular, or you think this, or you think that, that means you don't think they're a Chacham. You think they're like everybody else. You think like they're everybody else, you have a very serious problem. Because if they really are a Chacham, as the Kadosh Baruch Hu decreed, you have a very, very serious problem. Very serious problem. Why? You are suspecting the kosher. And the Gemara says, suspecting the kosher, you have a very big problem. Let's just say that. You have a very big problem. Suspecting a kosher person, Shem Yishmor v'Yatzil. So now, Rabotai, there are some people that make it their business to suspect kosher people. Why? Simple. If this person is really kosher, it obligates them to do tshuva, it obligates them to change, it obligates them to transform their life. And rather than simply saying, okay, that's a kosher person, what they're saying is kosher, I'm either going to be a winner by listening or a loser by not listening, but nonetheless, that's not necessarily going to change who they are. What do some people do? No, they try to make the kosher tarif. Instead of doing tshuva, instead of verifying the truth, what do? They start picking at different things and starting to deliver doubts. Oh, look, he used to work there. Oh, look, he knows that one. Oh, look, he lives there. Oh, look, he has this. And they just create all types of nothings in order to taint the picture in some way. Why? Because if this picture is as pristine as no normal people see it, that means that this person is kosher. If this person is kosher and I'm not one of the people that listens to him, I'm not one of the people that follows him, I'm not one of his disciples, there's something wrong with me. I can't do that. So they have to cancel out the kosher. Cancel out the kosher. And Hashem Yishmor v'Yatzil on such a person that goes and intentionally makes things that are kosher look not kosher. Udvar Hashem baza, says the Torah. This is a person that desecrated the Torah. Desecrated Torah, karet nafsho. His soul will be cut off in this world and the next, says the Gemara Masechet Sanhedrin. Karet. So now, Rabotai, when a person really is a Chacham, that means that for them, no money in the world is enough. No money in the world is enough to buy their opinion. There is no price for their opinion. If there is a price for their opinion, that means that their chokhmah is not real chokhmah. It's unfortunately, something that is damaged. Let's just say that. So now, Chazon Ish continues, and he says, if a person understands their obligation, that they have to believe that there is no personal interest that this Chacham has, and there is nothing that would hurt him more than him sinning, how could he, for money or for the desire to please somebody, harm his own soul by perverting justice? If a person truly understood that this person is really a Chacham and what it takes to be a Chacham, the thought that he would pervert justice simply disappears. In addition to this, the quality of truth is the most basic quality of the sage, and even the slightest untruth is completely foreign to him. Such an attitude towards scholars is that of the mass of honest men who follow the Torah scholars and learn from them. So Chazon Ish says the majority of people, at least in his day, followed the Chachamim blindly. Majority of people that were frum, followed Torah and mitzvot, they looked at the tzaddikim, they looked at the Gdolei Hador. He says something, I know it's true. He says I have to do this, I'm doing it. He said I have to give this, I'm doing it. Somebody came to the Ben Ish Chai and said to him, Kvod Harav, I want to build a hospital in Eretz Yisrael. I'm going to invest a lot of money. The Ben Ish Chai said, no, you take that money, you build a yeshiva. He said, yeah, but Rabbi, I mean, people are dying. You need a hospital. He says, it's much worse to die spiritually than physically. You need a yeshiva. That businessman is perhaps the smartest businessman in the last few hundred years, if not ever. Why? He listened to the Ben Ish Chai. And he built one of the most critical yeshivot in the history of Am Yisrael. Porat Yosef. Literally, one Gdolei Hador after another came out of this yeshiva. One Gdolei Hador after another. Why? Listen to a Chacham. It makes much more sense financially, logically, rationally, to go build a hospital. Right? Especially for a businessman. Thinks about money. Go invest all that money into a yeshiva. Why? The Chacham said so. Chacham said so. Look at the success this person had. Look how much Torah he brought to the world. So there are most people that are frum, that have a little bit of connection to Chachamim. They believe the Chacham said this, he's not saying it because of any other bias. Unfortunately, when the Yetzer Hara starts fooling people, they can turn the biggest Chachamim into the biggest Reshaim in the eyes of people. Why? Because the evil inclination works very hard. And that's what the Chazon Ish elaborates on here. He says the evil inclination can undermine this trust that people have by entrapping those who tend towards convoluted reasoning and offering them a complete theory supposedly drawn from the Gemara even, that personal interest has definitive power for the petty and the great alike, where even the wisest are prey to it, as are the Hasidim and as are the righteous. And according to this theory that these people have, the scholar who gives in to his personal interest according to them, he has nothing to be ashamed of. Why? Because he's a human being, and this is simply human nature to give in to your interest. But those who do not know that according to this assumption, the entire generation is thereby orphaned, and there can be no one that judges, and there can be no one that's actually a leader according to them. Meaning you can no longer have dayanim, you can no longer have rabbis, you can no longer have any leaders if everybody is the same. For even if a person will recognize the immense wisdom of the wise, he will not feel obligated to obey him, as he will find some reason to claim that that scholar's decision was swayed by personal interest. This can be claimed by anyone who is not satisfied with the scholar's decision, and so the generation begins to judge its judges. And anyone can do this as he pleases. Mama sounds like today's world. In any important case, clever ones will whisper to one another of some personal interest that caused the sage, sometimes the greatest man of the generation, the Gdolado, to judge wrongly, according to them. And in such a case, the city's atmosphere and sometimes the entire country's atmosphere becomes permeated with malicious words, dispute, and feuds. And the source of it is lack of faith in Torah scholars. If this was written in a book today by some author, he would automatically become the Gdolado. Why? This is exactly what has been transpiring in the Torah world and otherwise over the last couple of years, where all of a sudden every Joe Schmo, with or without a kippah, with or without a head covering, has decided to judge the judges. Anyone that wanted to become popular made a video about judging the judges. And we're not talking about, say, listen, this guy's saying things that are against the Torah, he's bringing missionaries to a shul, he is saying that God needs you, all types of nonsense that's clear in halacha. We're talking about people saying that, no, this rabbi, he's not Gdolado anymore. Why? Because he disagrees with somebody else that I hold dear. And who's that other somebody? Your local rabbi. Or your local doctor. Or some scientist you saw on some filthy news channel. We see, Rabotai, that people have no concept. People have no concept of what a Gdolado is, and they say things that cost them a lot. Now, of course, for anyone that thinks for a moment that the Torah didn't speak about such things is mistaken. In fact, in a couple of places in the Torah, we have the Torah warning us about shochad, about bribery, and how bribery could blind those that are supposed to know better. One of the places in this we just read in a couple of weeks ago in Parashat Mishpatim. Parashat Mishpatim in the book of Exodus, chapter 23, verse number 8. V'shochad lo tikach, ki ha-shochad ya'aver pikchim, v'yisalef divrei tzadikim. Torah says, do not accept a bribe, for the bribe will blind those who see, that's the pikchim, and corrupt the words that are just. So here we see that shochad, bias, bribery, is something that Torah mentions. The second time it mentions it is at the end of the Chumash by Moshe Rabbeinu in Parashat Shoftim. We have Mishpatim in Exodus and Shoftim in Deuteronomy, Sefer Dvarim, where in the beginning of the parasha it says, לא תטה משפט, לא תכיר פנים ולא תיקח שוחד, כי השוחד יעבר עיני חכמים ויסלף דברי צדיקים. Said, you shall not pervert judgment, you shall not respect someone's presence, and you shall not accept a bribe, for the bribe will blind the eyes of the wise and make just words crooked. So here we see a slight difference. A slight difference. The first time it's mentioned, Parashat Mishpatim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says that this shochad, this bribery, this bias, blinds those that are pikchim, those that are supposed to see. Later on, Moshe Rabbeinu, in the book of Deuteronomy, says that shochad, this bias, this bribery, blinds the wise. Now what's the difference between those that see and those that are wise? Pikrim and Chachamim. So the sages teach us the difference between the two is that a pikeach, someone that can see, it's someone that can see trouble ahead and stay away from it in order not to get into it altogether. And a Chacham, that's mentioned later on in Deuteronomy by Moshe Rabbeinu, is a person that knows how to get out of the trouble. The Pikeach knows how not to get into the trouble altogether, but the Chacham knows how to get out of the trouble. Now, we have a teaching that's accepted among all of Yeridat Adorot, the degradation of the generations. From the time of Adam HaRishon, we have continuously gone down each and every single generation. Our abilities, both physical, mental, spiritual, have continued to deteriorate each and every generation. How long is every generation? That also has changed. At the time of David HaMelech, he mentions in Psalm chapter 95, verse number 10, that a dor is 40 years. A generation is 40 years. It's well accepted, the Divrei Torah by Rabbi Yecheskel Sarna, Rabbi Yecheskel Sarna, that times have changed, so much so that a generation is no longer 40 years like it was at the time of Moshe Rabbeinu and David HaMelech. Generation today, 2 years. How do we know? Rav Sarna says, we see in our yeshiva, we have kids here for 2 years. We see what they are. The new class coming in, they're nothing alike. These kids, when they came here, they knew such and such. 2 years later, we have a different group of kids. They're coming in. They don't know what these other guys knew. It's like a completely different generation. They already knew, a few pages of Gemara when they came in. These guys, they barely knew Chumash. 2 years later, they didn't even know Chumash. 2 years later, you have to tell them what the Chumash is, Bechlal. Generation has changed drastically. And we see from our own lives, anyone that's old enough to remember the 1990s, as an adult in the 1990s, or at least as a teenager in the 1990s, knows how different the world is today than it was 25 years ago. The world is drastically different, as if it's a different world than what it was when we were growing up. Back then, kids, it was normal for them to have a job. It was normal for them to take care of themselves. It was normal for them to contribute. Today, you're lucky if the kid takes out his own garbage, takes the plate off the table and puts it in the garbage. You're lucky if you have that. Back then, if you wanted to do something, you knew that you had to go somewhere, get something done. You have to spend some hours waiting online, waiting for this, do for this. Today, once something is past 30 seconds waiting time, I'm done with this. Too much time. Everything is instant gratification. You can never meet demand. Why? Because demand keeps requesting something that's impossible to meet. They're used to what's the internet offering them. What the internet is offering them. Somebody sends you a text message. If you don't respond within a minute or two, they already send you a question mark. Everything okay? Yeah, of course everything okay. Why? Oh, you didn't answer me. Already 2 minutes have passed. I'm just making sure everything's okay. Well, perhaps there's other people in the world other than you. Yeah, but why didn't you answer me then? Like, you're completely ignoring the fact that you actually have other people in your life, because everyone is expecting that immediate gratification, that immediate answer. And you almost have to train every new relationship to be normal. Because no one is willing to wait. No one is willing to sacrifice. Everyone wants everything on a silver platter. You give people a job, they expect you to literally handhold them and tell them where to do, which departments to go to, and where to pick up, and where to this, and where to do that. People are no longer self-sufficient. I remember when I was a kid, little kid, 10 years old, I worked in a flea market. Simple. We're here. Okay, what do? Find something to do. We're here to make money, go find something to do. You see people are doing something, follow it. And before you know it, by the end of the day, you know how to fold clothes, you know how to hang them, you know how to take apart racks, you know how to pretty much, put some bandages on yourself anytime you wound yourself with anything. You know how to handle the cold, you know how to handle the heat, you know how to handle customers. You became a salesperson overnight, and all you are is 10 years old. People are surprised when I tell them that I had 3 jobs when I was in high school. Guess what? I wasn't the only one that had 3 jobs in high school. And that wasn't like in the 1800s. I'm not that old. Today, you're lucky if a person has a job when he's in his 20s. How many kids ask me, Rabbi, you know anybody that's hiring? Well, what do you want? What kind of job do you want? Oh, I don't know, anything. Okay, great. Okay, so I get somebody. Somebody has a restaurant. They're looking for a waiter. No, not that, Rabbi. Okay, I have another guy. He's looking for a secretary. Oh, no, not that. Okay, I have another guy that has a construction company. No, not that. Now, what do you want then? I don't know. Maybe like I could be a lawyer. Well, you need a law degree for that. Oh, you do? Why, they can't just let me in because maybe you're their rabbi? Maybe they'll make me a lawyer just because you're their rabbi? And you sit there and you ask yourself, how is it possible that Mashiach hasn't come yet? Because if he waits any longer, he won't have anybody else left to save. People literally are becoming stupider by the second. Everything has to be immediate. And what do they have to look up to? The newfound millionaires. Who? Whatever teenager has a YouTube channel gaming, or somebody that put some money into Bitcoin over the last 5 years. Those are the millionaires, and therefore their success. They're the symbols of success. So when you tell them that real success comes from somebody that made it through life, somebody that knows life, somebody that knows what the Torah is, somebody that knows the purpose of life, that's success. They look at you like you have 15 heads. And unfortunately, Rabotai Karim, today, people are not willing to make any type of sacrifice. They want everything on a silver platter. Nobody wants to work hard. Nobody wants to learn on the job. Nobody wants to do something that they don't want to do. Everyone wants the perfect job, the perfect marriage, the perfect dinner, the perfect breakfast, the perfect outfit, the perfect wife or husband, the perfect car, the perfect website, the perfect marketing, the perfect event, the perfect rabbi, the perfect kids, the perfect everything, and even perfect life. As if somebody today didn't send me a question, a young girl that sends me questions that I've already, unfortunately, know there's no hope for this person because they've asked the same question 5,000 times and they refuse to do the research that I give them to do to find the answer. Research, i.e. meaning my lectures. Rabbi, can I ask you a God question? Yes. Why is life so hard? Ribono shel olam. Every lecture I do talks a little bit about that. Here's a lecture, watch that. No, is there a shorter answer of why life is so hard? If the question itself is so big, you can't answer it in a short format. But even if you give certain people a short format, they're like, I don't know, maybe there's something else. Yeah, there is something else. You just didn't want to listen to it because you want a 30-second answer in less than 144 characters because you're used to Twitter. Rabotai, we are in deep trouble because we have a generation of people that is now expecting that same type of mentality from the world of Torah. And when they're not getting that mentality from the world of Torah, they are revolting against the Torah and turning the greatest people that are alive in our generation into the worst people in their eyes. Why? Because the Yetzer Hara has perfected a strategy of how to get people away from the Torah, even if they were brought up in it. Infect them with the virus called lack of Emunat Chachamim, doubting Emunat Chachamim, hating Chachamim. How? Start by getting yourself a friend. Start by listening to some heretic rabbi making fun of the greatest sages that ever lived. Start by getting somebody to tell you things that are against what the Torah says. You have 13 principles of faith that says that God is perfect. He doesn't need anything. You're going to have somebody come in his generation and tell you that God only created you because logically he needs you. And unfortunately, many people are falling for that trap. Now, of course, in Parashat Truma, we saw that HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, V'yikchu li truma. They take for me a truma. Onkelos translates it as, take this for me, in order to avoid the connotation that Hashem had any need for their donations. Meaning, take this for me as separate this before me. Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu does not need anything from people, doesn't need their donations, and he doesn't need anything that they bring to the Mishkan. In fact, the entire world belongs to Hashem and he needs nothing from it, says Onkelos. Also the Nefesh Agir. So we see here that the basic logic that's being taught to hundreds of thousands of people that are listening to heretics tell you that God needs you is contradicted by a simple verse in Chumash. But yet, people say, yeah, but maybe somebody else said something else. You're not understanding. If an onkelos said it, there's no way in the world that your local YouTube rabbi or your local synagogue rabbi is going to know more than onkelos. It's just not a reality. There is no such reality that exists. And if you're going to say, yeah, but there were other sages. You're right. There were many other sages. No nation in the world ever had or has as many sages as the Jewish people. But how come you're never going to find it by any other sage? How come after we've called it out so many times that it's wrong, it's heretical, no one has ever mentioned one source that says such a thing? Because it doesn't exist. To say God needs anything is 100% heretical. But yet there are many people that believe that. And even some of them contact me still to this day. Just last week, I had a young guy that considered himself a Chacham telling me, no, listen, Rabbi, I know Torah. I learned Torah my whole life. I know everything. And I think that you're wrong on this one. I said, okay, give me a source. He couldn't provide a single source. He could just provide his own warped understanding. And therefore, our Chachamim taught us that there are certain people that existed in the past that were pikrim. They were able to see the problem and stay away from it. But times have changed. 40 years have passed. And when Moshe Rabbeinu repeats this mitzvah of staying away from bribery, because bribery can distort the logic and the vision of even the greatest people in the world, he doesn't mention them as being the same type of pikrim. Those same type of people that see the problem and therefore stay away from it. But rather he says, this shochad, this bias, this bribery can even blind the Chachamim. Meaning the ones that can get out of a problem. But they're already at a lower level. Meaning that already in our Torah, we saw a degradation in the generation. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to Am Yisrael in Sefer Shmot, stay away from bribery. He was talking to us at the beginning of our journey. 40 years later, before Moshe Rabbeinu dies, just a few weeks before, Moshe Rabbeinu already saw that we've gotten ourselves in trouble. We've deteriorated. And we no longer have those people that cannot stay out of trouble. What we have are people that are smart enough to get out of trouble once they're in it. This is what we still have to this day. We have people that are Chachamim, that know how to get us out of trouble. The problem is we insist on refusing their Torah. We insist on refusing their Chokhmah because we think we know better. Now, unfortunately, sometimes these mistakes are made by righteous people. And there were times that Am Yisrael saw what it means to go against the Chacham and how horrible it could be. A couple of 100 years ago, there was a family of tzaddikim, the Shapira family, who had a printing house, and in those times, to print the Gemara was very expensive. It was done in the old way. Each letter, you'd have to put the old printing presses one letter at a time. So it was hard to get a printer to actually print the Gemara. So this family, who had a printing house, led by the two brothers, the tzaddikim, Rav Shmuel and Rav Pinchas Shapira, they were willing to take on this endeavor of printing the Shas in this new format, but in the old-fashioned way of printing. But it was a big expense, so they wanted the rabbis to help them. So the rabbis said, you're right, you'll make the investment, and we forbid anyone from printing a different version of the Talmud for the next 10 years. So you don't lose any money. You have to sell all of your copies that you're printing, and we'll make sure that nobody does it, or else they'll be put on cherem. Fine. They took on the investment, and they published this, the Talmud. They sold it. Baruch Hashem. Almost 10 years passed. Not quite 10 years, but almost. And it was a different family that came out with more sophisticated way of printing and the format of the Talmud, which was the Tfus Vilna. The Tfus of the printing of the Shapira family was the Tfus Slavita, and then came the Tfus Vilna, which is what we have today. Most common use today is the Tfus Vilna, publication of Vilna. So these guys with the Vilna, they said, listen, we want to print. But the brothers, the tzaddikim, Rav Shmuel and Rav Pinchas Shapira, said, no, there's a cherem, you're not allowed to print. So the tzaddikim from the Vilna said, listen, you're right. That's why we're willing to offer you this. So the whole cherem was for the sake of you not losing any money. No problem. We will buy all of the copies that you have, so you don't lose any money. They disagreed. No, 10 years is 10 years. Yeah, but it's almost there. No, 10 years is 10 years. But you're not going to lose any money. No. We're going to go to Din Torah. Okay, Din Torah. They go to Din Torah in the Beit Din of the Gedol Ador, Rabbi Akiva Iger. Rabbi Akiva Iger lived a couple of 100 years ago in the 1800s. Born in the 1700s, lived in the 1800s. Rabbi Akiva Iger's wisdom is to such an extent that when somebody that's a Talmid Chacham understands his question, they already feel like, wow, what a merit I have to understand the wisdom that he has in his question. Forget about the answer. The wisdom that he has in the question is already more than enough to give a person a little bit of feeling of Gan Eden. Rabbi Akiva Eigel's Kodesh Kodeshim. Here's the case between the Tvus Slavita and Tvus Vilna, and says, really, the only reason why we put the cherem of 10 years is so you don't lose money. But since they're offering to buy all of the copies that you have, this guarantees you won't lose any money. So why force it to wait a little bit longer just to make sure it's 10 years and lower the Torah's publicity? Meaning that if they go into the market right now, it's not going to stop you from being able to. You continue. But now you have another person, another company that can publicize, and there'll be more Torah in the world. Why not more Torah in the world? And that's the psak. Psak is, they're allowed to print. As long as they buy your copies, they're allowed to print. And that was the judgment. These two righteous brothers apparently had what's called a ruach shtut, a spirit of foolishness entered them, because that's what the Gemara says. Anytime that a person sins, they starts off with a ruach shtut. A spirit of stupidity enters them, spiritual stupidity. And what do? Instead of doing what they've been doing all these years, they took their time and they started printing posters, pishkevilim, posting it everywhere they can, in the thousands, saying Rabbi Akiva Eiger is an old man, he's not all there anymore, and really his heart is in the control of his son, Shlomo Eiger. And that's why he judged and ruled against us. And this is what they publicized everywhere. Somebody brought a copy of this Pishkevin to Rabbi Akiva Eiger. He saw it, and they saw him start crying. They saw the Gedol Hador start crying, and then he said, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, my honor I forgive, but the desecration to your honor, don't forgive. The desecration of my son's name, don't forgive. And literally, within days, the judgment from heaven came in a fashion that no one in the world expected. One of the employees that worked at the Slavita publication, some guy named Yuri, who was known to be a drunk, one day drank too much, lost his mind, decided to hang himself. And where did this idiot decide to hang himself? Inside the printing house. Of course, the goyim that hate the Jews and look for any reason to destroy the Jews, especially the successful ones, when they heard about this, they brought the police. The police immediately handcuffs the two tzaddikim brothers, Rav Pinchas and Rav Shmuel. You'll know in a moment why I still call these two tzaddikim. Despite the mistake that they made, they're still tzaddikim 100%. And you'll see why. After Rav Shmuel and Rav Pinchas went to jail and got a beating of their life, they said, okay, now, there's going to be a judgment. Judgment is death penalty to both of you. You killed your employee. What killed him? We didn't do anything. We helped him. We fed him. We tried to... No. You killed him because you're Jews, and you killed poor Yuri. You hung him because you don't like goyim. Of course, this is not the only time that the goyim blamed us for killing, because of course the goyim, they never kill. They're all righteous. They never killed a single person. Even the 6 million Jews weren't killed by goyim. They were killed by who knows. So anyway, These two tzaddikim are judged death penalty. But of course, they're going to do whatever they can to sweeten this heavy judgment. They sell everything they have, bribe everything. They literally give every single possession that they have just to sweeten the judgment. Their father, who was a tzaddik himself, died from the anguish of hearing the judgment on his two sons. Died, heart attack, died. After all of the money they literally gave, everything they had, okay, we'll lower your judgment to what? You have to go. Each one of you has to get 300. You have to go through a line of 300 police officers. Each one of them is going to hit you with a whip. You have to go a couple of times. 2 or 3 times, or however many times it was. If you even survive. And then after that, if you actually survive, you spend the rest of your life in Siberia. So when they got to this, anguish, suffering, and already by this time they've been in prison for 3 years, getting beatings on a regular basis, crying their heart out to Hashem, but understanding completely and accepting the judgment from Shemaim that they made a mistake. They made a mistake by speaking against the Chacham, a Chacham of Hashem. They made a mistake and the judgment is already decreed in Shemaim. There's nothing you can do about it. The words are already out there. You can't take them back. The judgment is in Shemaim. So these two poor guys are in prison getting a beating of a lifetime, but the main judgment has not happened yet. Finally they get to it. There's 150 police officers, Yimach Shimam v'Zichram, on the right side and 150 on the left. And the two brothers are there and said, okay, go. And somebody holds them with a chain to make sure they keep going. The brothers argue among each other before they go. I'll go first. I'll go first. No, I'll go first. Rav Pinchas says, I'm the older one. Let me go first. Rav Shmuel says, no, because I'm the younger one. Let me go. Okay, you go. Rav Shmuel goes in and the beatings begin. And of course, each one of the police officers does not hold himself back just for one whip. If he's in front of him, trach. And he keeps going and going. And he's going through it. But then on the way back, he stops. And they're hitting him over and over again. And he tells them, stop! And they're like, what stop? Trach, trach, trach. And one of the people sees the guy won't go. They keep hitting him more and more. And he just keeps going. He's not moving. And one of these Reshaim, Yimach Shimam v'Zichram, directs his whip right at his face and pops out his eye. And despite this, Rav Shmuel says, I'm not moving. One of the police officers said, what's wrong with you, you fool? You're going to die here. He says, it says in my Torah that I'm not allowed to walk 4 amot, 6 to 8 feet, without having my kippah on. My kippah fell. I'm not moving. They realize this is a person that's not a normal person, according to their lowly standards. They pick up his kippah, they put it on his head, and they continue hitting him. And he went through the rest of it, and the force collapsed. His brother of Pinchas goes through the same thing, survives it. After extraordinary damage, they sent both of these tzaddikim that weren't willing to walk 4 amot without having a kippah on, accepted the deen of heaven completely because they made a mistake. Never complained against Hashem, never said this is the wrong judgment. Went to Siberia, spent over a decade there, 16, 17 years. And after the Caesar Nikolai Machshimo V'Zichro died, They were freed from Siberia and lived the rest of their lives as regular poor people. But everyone knew that these two were tzaddikim that lived and died on Kiddush Hashem. Why? They had no complaints against Hashem, and they knew they made a mistake. What's mistake? We said something against the Chacham. What is that something? Not that he is tall, he's short, he's Sephardi, Ashkenazi. No, much worse. We said he's biased. There's nothing worse than that. There's nothing worse than saying such a thing about a Chacham. To say that a Chacham is biased, might as well call him Hitler. And that's not even bad. That's not even as bad. Why? Because you're telling the person that his entire life is toiling for the sake of Torah, for the sake of the truth, that he doesn't know what he's talking about. He's too old. Somebody can steer his opinion. Somebody really is taking over. He doesn't know what he's doing. A person that cannot even recognize what falsehood looks like because he's so glued to the truth. You're saying that he's lying, he's biased, he's allowing other people to fool him. Why? Because you rationalize that since Gehazi lived a few thousand years ago, and he lived under the tutelage of Elisha the prophet, so if he had a wicked person under him, surely a person of today could have a wicked person under him. Yes, you're right, wicked people exist everywhere, but you're not calling those people wicked, you're calling the Chacham wicked. You're not saying that the people that work for him are corrupt. You're saying that he is corrupt. Why? Because you're saying that he doesn't know what's going on under his own nose. When people start making fun of Chachamim, Rabotai Karim, they have no concept of what they're dealing with. The mindset of Chachamim works very, very differently than the mindset of regular people. I'll give you an example. Years ago, also around a couple hundred years ago, a little less, 150 years ago, there was a Chacham named Ktav Sofer. Ktav Sofer, one of the descendants of the Chatam Sofer, son. The Ktav Sofer was a big Chacham. He was the Rav of Presburg in the 1800s. And Ktav Sofer had a big Seudat mitzvah, big festive meal for the sake of a mitzvah, publicizing Torah. And many Chachamim came. Said Divrei Torah, Chizuk, Baruch Hashem. Now, the Ktav Sofer, when it was his turn to speak, he said, I'm ready to, in the honor of this big mitzvah, I'm ready to show something that I've never showed anybody before. A possession that I've had for many, many years, but I've never showed to anybody. But in the honor of this mitzvah of celebrating the Torah, to make Chachamim happy, to make Kiddush Hashem, I'm ready to show it. Grabs his pocket and takes out of his pocket a coin and says, this is a machatzita shekel from the Bet HaMikdash. It's been this family for many years, all the way from the time of the Bet HaMikdash. We're talking about a coin that's over a couple thousand years old. Everyone is in awe. Everyone is amazed. Of course, they all want to see it. The Chacham gives it to everybody to see it, and everyone looks at it, amazed by it, and says something they know about the Bet HaMikdash, something they know about the mitzvah of Machatzita Shekel. And of course, there's an enormous amount of Torah. A whole wave of Torah enters the room. They're not enamored about a silly coin made out of some metal. No, They're enamored about the connection to something that is in our blood from 2,000 years ago. And how it connects us to the Torah. And each Chacham gets to see it and says a Dvar Torah. After some time, when everybody spoke, the Ktaf Sofer asks for the coin. Can please somebody give me the coin? And everybody looks around waiting for the person to give the coin. But nobody's giving the coin. And shortly after, everyone realizes the coin is gone. Everyone claims not to have it, but it must be here. Nobody left the room. No one is allowed to leave the room. But at the same token, you have a room full of Chachamim. We're not talking about criminals here. We're not talking about people that are fools. We're talking about Chachamim. Of course, the Ktaf Sofer is beyond himself, not knowing what to be sadder about. Whether it's the loss of his precious coin or the fact that a Chacham could potentially be the one that stole it from him. Everyone is talking. And then they say, okay, obviously since everybody has been here the whole time, it must be here. And therefore, we're going to count to 10 or 20. And at 20, everyone has to, at the same time, empty out their pockets and show what you have in your pockets. Ready? Everyone agrees. Ready? What? Then hold on a second. One of the older Chachamim, Rav Usher, raises his hand and says, can we please wait? Wait for what? He says, please, can we wait 20 minutes? Now, of course, everyone is riled up here, but the Chacham is one of the elders, and in his honor, they have to listen. So, okay, we'll wait for 20 minutes. No one really understands why we're waiting for 20 minutes, but we'll wait for 20 minutes. Of course, everyone is thinking. No one is comfortable here. Everyone's looking at the clock. 20 minutes seems like 20 years. The second the dial hits 20 minutes, like, okay. Rav Usher answers his hand again. He says, please, I'm not going to ask for any more time after this. But please, do me a big favor. Wait 10 more minutes. Everyone now is much more rowdy than before. They're almost have lost patience with the old Chacham. But since he promised not to do this again, 10 more minutes is something we owe him. And they wait. And they ask, why 10? He said, just wait. And as the clock goes, 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3, 4, 5, 6 minutes have passed. 4 are left. The room gets tense. Everyone is looking around, and of course, some people have in their minds of who they think did it. Maybe it's him, I saw him do this. Maybe it's him, I saw him do that. Maybe this, maybe that. All of those different thoughts enter different people's minds. The Yetzer Hara tries to infiltrate wherever he can. And only a couple of minutes left here when the waiter runs into the room. Sir, I found it. The room looks at this waiter, hold over a 2,000-year-old coin in his hand, running towards the Ktaf Sofer. And says to him, how did you get it? He says, it was on one of the dishes. It was on one of the dishes, and I must have not looked when I picked it up. And I just took all the dishes. And now when we were trying to clean, we ran into it. So now everybody's heads turn to Rav Usher. Are you a prophet? How did you know that that's going to happen? How did Rav Usher know that the coin will show up? Rav Usher stands up and says to them, I have a confession to make. And he grabs his pocket. And out of his pocket he also takes out another machatzita shekel coin from the time of the Bet HaMikdash over 2,000 years ago. He says, I too have a coin from over 2,000 years ago from the Bet HaMikdash. And I knew that if I would take it out of my pocket, everyone would say, this is his coin, you stole it. But it's not instilled. I had it my whole life. This is in my family for many generations. But who is going to believe me? Such an unbelievable story. What is the chances that I too will have the same coin from over 2,000 years ago? So they asked him, so how did you know that the coin will show up? He said, I didn't know. But I knew that you cannot lose out of a mitzvah. You see, when I saw the Ktaf Sofer take out his coin and be so happy having this coin, I could have easily said, well, I have it too. All the honor he was getting, all the kavod, I want some, maybe I can show my coin too, and everyone will be happy for me too. But why would I do that? I wanted him to feel like he's the only one that has the coin. It made him happy. Why should I ruin it? And then I thought to myself, why would HaKadosh Baruch Hu punish me for making a Chacham happy? So surely he has a solution for this. Surely, somehow he's not going to allow me to be embarrassed in front of all of my friends, explaining how this coin that I have is not his coin, and being viewed as a liar or senile at best. Of course, this story was told by Rav Shvadron many years ago, many times. And the truth is that there are so many lessons to be learned by this story. Not just that a person shouldn't question another Chacham, but also how much concern one Chacham has for another Chacham's happiness. How clever each one of them are to see what other people will think before they even know that something exists or doesn't exist. The mindset of the Chachamim simply does not work the same way. Of course, everyone that listens to the story now can say, yeah, I would have done the same thing. Right, exactly. Like my father always says, shteti pot mayim, like 2 drops of water. Your brain and the Chacham's brain, like 2 drops of water. You can't tell them apart. We have to stop joking ourselves and thinking that we're Chachamim and we think like them. It's important, Rabotai Yekarim, to know where we stand. And to know that if we stand next to the Chachamim, we've already won. When we stand against them, we're much worse than losers. Be'ezrat Hashem, this too will give each one of us more chizuk to simply do what the Chachamim said to do. whether we agree or disagree, whether we like or dislike. The key is to try the best we can to fulfill what the Mishnah in Masechet Avot says, to be at the feet of the Chachamim, to be like dust under their feet, to be next to their shadow, because surely we know that they are much closer to the truth than we are naturally. And so long as we stay close to them, we stay close to the truth. Baruch Adonai Leolam. Amen v'amen.